Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to another romance recommendation video. These are the videos that I try to make once or twice a week. I try to have some fresh recommendations going out to you, and I try to keep these videos under 30 minutes. Sometimes I'm successful and sometimes I'm not. I think I'll be pretty successful with this one because some of these videos on my toxic romance recommendation list, I really love them, so I have more to say. But some of them are actually like not rated as high as I usually try to have books on this. But because to me, toxic romance is different for every person. And some of these videos when I was, going through Goodreads and the books that I've read, the people who put them as toxic really love them. And so this is one of those recommendation videos where I have some recs that maybe we're even like a 3, or one of them that's even a 2, which I know that's like, why are you recommending it? But there are other people who really liked this book and they liked it because of the toxic romance. And for me, sometimes the toxic romance can be like over the top and it will pull me from the book. But because this is toxic romance recommendation, I'm going to leave it up to you if you like it or not, and maybe you can check out some of those reviews where people gave it 5 stars, and maybe it will be for you. A lot of these that I'm sharing with you will be 5 stars, and we'll talk about that. But I want to start with the book that actually gave me the idea for this. Now, funnily enough, just a little more story time and then we'll get going. I had this video prepped before I went on the Booktuber retreat. And in the time since I prepped my list, there's been a couple videos I think that came out with toxic romances. I think Cheyenne did one and I think McKay did one. I'm not positive, but I remember seeing that someone else had just done a toxic romance, and that's just how it goes. We all think alike sometimes. So whoever else has posted it, I'll have them either up in the cards or list down below if you want more toxic romances based on what they think. But anyway, I want to start with the book that inspired me to do this rec list because, sometimes you're just like, man, I don't know what is a romance is that I haven't recommended yet. And it's actually Immoral by Maggie Cole. Now, Jen, doesn't Maggie Cole have a book that's called Toxic that's right behind you? Yes, she does. However, having read both of these books now, I consider the relationship between Johnny and Kara, is it Kara, to be much more toxic than Dante and Bridget. Dante and Bridget just have a lot of secrets that they have, like that Bridget literally has to keep. And she was also married to someone else for a very long time before he died. And I just didn't see their relationship as toxic in the same way that Johnny and Kara was. Toxic can mean other things than the relationship being toxic, absolutely. But the way that these two were together, to me, was much more unhealthy than what was happening in that one. And that's just my opinion. Maybe some other people who've read these ones will see that too. But this is a mafia romance. Johnny and Kara. Johnny is actually the twin brother of Dante from book 1. This is part of the spin-off of the Mafia Worlds by Maggie Cole. This is book 2 in the Mafia Wars New York. And Johnny and Kara have been off and on together since they were teens. And they will be together for periods of time and then apart. And Johnny very much won't fully commit to Kara, but every time she has tried to move on and fall in love with someone else, he will find a way to ruin it for her. Kind of because he wants her always to be available to him. And I really consider that toxic behavior. When we come to them at this point, Kara has very much resisted him butting in again because she's found someone she wants to be with. The thing is, she's picked an enemy of the, Marino. Sorry, that just went out of my head. And she has embroiled herself with someone who is very dangerous. And because Johnny always ruins her relationships, she doesn't believe him when he's warning her, and she finds herself up for auction in a sex slave auction. And Gianni rescues her, and to put her fully out of the reach of this, you know, now ex-boyfriend, who we find out was literally was like Romeoing her into a false sense of security so that he could, you know, sell her. He forces her to marry him. So this book starts with a forced marriage. And also one of the reasons it's so hurtful what he's done to her, not the forced marriage part, the 20 years of off again, on again, is that they also have a BDSM dynamic in their relationship when they are in the bedroom. And as someone who loves reading about that, and something that like Maggie Cole puts in a lot of her books, she puts BDSM dynamics in a lot of her books, it is very clear how unhealthy that is, that this is someone who wants her to fully trust him with her body when they're in the bedroom, and someone that she is addicted to in a sexual sense, who meets all of her sexual needs that way. He is abandoning her outside of the bedroom, and he has for all this time. And so now when he's like, I'm done fucking around, almost losing Kara this way has shocked me out of my senses. I want her. Kara's like, how can you ever expect me to take my battered heart and put it out there for you again? So there's a very interesting point in this book when that finally clicks for Gianni, that this isn't a game anymore, and that he might have actually lost his woman forever. And the way he goes about winning her back was really great. But I consider this a very toxic relationship, but we're seeing kind of like the end of the toxicity, and okay, who are we going to be forever? And the way Maggie Cole does, again, like these are characters like late 30s, I believe, yeah, like late 30s that they are. And, you know, we stay fucked up for a long time. It happens. Okay, next, I have a book that I had kind of controversial opinions on, but it's by one of my favorite authors in the whole wide world. And I think even if you adore this book, which a lot of people do, I'm biased, I have other favorites. This couple is toxic, and I think we'll all agree. And that would be The Savage by Sophie Lark, which, I mean, I'll never get over this cover. I'll never not love looking at Arik that way. Did I say that? Is it Ulrich? This is Ulrich? Adric, sorry. Whoa. Listen to me. So this is book 5 in the Kingmakers. So I know I'm recommending one that you have a ways to go to get to this. And I have ranted on about Sophie Lark many times. And I know someone's going to ask me, you know, because I get these questions now all the time. Can you just read this as a standalone? You absolutely fucking may not. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. Like, you will be very confused if you try to read this as a standalone. And I know that some people say they're interconnected standalones. The Kingmakers is not interconnected standalones. They are interconnected. Will she fill in enough information so you're not completely lost? Sure. But, because if you read this one and then decide that you want to read all of them, you've completely fucked yourself for what the reveal is in the Kingmakers, because it will be absolutely spoiled. But I don't care. I'm recommending toxic romances, and most of y'all have been on the Sophie Lark journey with me over the past couple years, and you will, you know, maybe be caught up to this, or maybe this will spark you into it or whatever. I have a video about the Sophie Lark reading order. You can click on that if you'd like to, and then just know that this book gets added on at the end of the other order that I put in. But anyway, Adric and Sabrina, they, after the what happened in the previous 4 books, they really had a connection with each other. So this book starts with their first date, where they go on this wild, crazy date together, and Adric is trying to fit Sabrina into this certain box, and she's just busting out of it, including stealing his fancy bike, including they have a threesome together with another woman, including just like being absolutely bonkers together. And then after this amazing date, they stay in contact with each other through the summer, and Sabrina is supposed to be going back to Kingmakers Academy, and she makes the decision to move to, do they move to Moscow or St. Petersburg? I think they moved to Moscow, yeah, because the others are at St. Petersburg, and try to become the top Don and Donna, or whatever they're going for, in the Bratva chapter there. And they are a great team for a lot until things go wrong, and then your best lover can become your worst enemy, and you just watch these two tear each other apart and build each other back together again. And it's bananas. It's hot. It's spicy. There were things about this that were very angsty for me. This is, like I said, it's not my favorite Sophie Lark. But if we're talking about toxic romance, I would say that in general, Sophie doesn't have like toxic romances. Like, honestly, most of her romance, though they are hate to love, don't have that element that makes something toxic to me. They're usually like, I've fallen for you and now we're it. But this one definitely has some of that. I mean, the bully could be a little bit, but that's more like they don't know what they're in the middle of yet. But here we go. Then I have Wrong by Adelaide Forrest. I won't talk about this too much. This is a shorty. This one is actually a standalone. It was part of the Black Heart romance like series that was happening where it's all based around the Heaven and Hell Club or something, or Purgatory. Yeah, Black Heart romance. Sorry, where is it? Heaven and Hell series. But this one is an age gap, dad's best friend, and it begins with like a rape. So I'm just putting that out there. Like, this one is really, really dark and twisty, where our heroine gets like kidnapped by the hero on accident. Like, it is on accident because she happens to be at the same coffee shop where he's supposed to be meeting his date, who his date was set up by the Heaven and Hell or the Purgatory for him to kidnap and like fake rape a woman. Like, that was the setup. That was going to be the like kinky date he was going on. And because his best friend's like daughter is there, literally his goddaughter, who he's been attracted to for a little while, he's like, oh my God, she's into this. It must be her. Because the woman that he was planning to pick up, the description of her is like Everly, because he's been fantasizing about Everly and he's trying to live out a healthy fantasy, but then he sees her and he's like, oh my God, it's actually her. And so all her pleas of no, stop, don't, they are ignored because he thinks that she's in on this. And it's only after he has raped her that he realizes she wasn't in on it. But now he's like, well, now I've claimed you and you're going to be mine. And nothing she's able to do is going to get her away from him. So this might not completely fit into, like, I don't know. I thought it was pretty toxic. This is also, you know, like, this is a quickie. This is only like 150 pages. But it just really like hit a lot of buttons for me, as Adelaide Forrest tends to do. And so I just thought I'd put it on here because it is a spicy ride and you're very uncomfortable when you're reading it. And it's not Stockholm Syndrome, but it's definitely a woman kind of just like, I have no choice but to give in. And I know this isn't a healthy relationship for me, but we're going to do it. Then there is Burn for Me by Sarah Kate. This is a professor and student romance. The heroine is older. The hero, he's 18, and his name is Cullen. And he actually has a vendetta against our heroine, whose name is Everly as well. That's right. This was when I was reading a bunch of books with the same name as my niece, and it always makes me awkward. But anyway, and she had actually ruined his life when he was a kid she's a reporter, and she actually like revealed some crimes that his father had been doing. They were horrible. And she's the reason that his father went to prison and that his mother ended up killing herself, and he ended up living with his uncle, who was very abusive. So now he's at college, and his first day of class, the heroine who ruined his life is his professor. And he's a very angry boy. He has a lot of reasons to be an angry boy. And so he decides to get some evidence over her by forcing her into a compromising position, taking pictures, and then threatening to ruin her life. Now, the thing is, why this fits into toxic for me and not like some other kind of, you know, psychopathic thing, is that it's very clear that he is hurting and he wants someone to blame for the way his life went. And the heroine feels guilty for what happened to him, even though she doesn't feel guilty that his dad went to prison because he was a disgusting man and he deserved to go to prison. She still feels bad. So she does let things go further than she would. because she feels bad. And so it really becomes this, like, she lets him stalk her and she gets off on it too. So it's more dubious consent than non-consensual, because she could tell on him and it wouldn't be her, like, she could get him in trouble. The compromising things he does to her, she could prove that he did it, but they just end up in kind of this twisted whirl of, like, I hate you, I want to fuck you, it's your fault, so I'm going to punish you. And the heroine just lets him. Then I thought I'd bring up an oldie but a goodie, okay? I'm going to bring up Den of Vipers by K.A. Knight. I know this has mostly made its rounds by now, but I read this book a long time ago. I read it before it went viral on any place, before people on YouTube were reading it, or TikTok, or anywhere else. I read this book. I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't even know what a reverse harem was. I just had heard that it, like, I knew that it was maybe like a menage, which it didn't end up really being a menage. It is a reverse harem. There's brothers involved. There's 4 of these mafia men involved, and they're called the Vipers. And so it's Ryder, Garrett, Kenzo, and Diesel, and then our heroine is Roxy. And her father owned them some money, and they end up owning her business. And they send some men to get her because her father's basically traded her. And it's horrible. But it happens in the mafia, I guess. So they send some men to get her, and those men fail miserably. She literally beats them with a baseball bat, takes a knife to them, and kicks them out of her bar. So then the Vipers come to get her, and they subdue her and bring her back to their compound, and they're just going to keep her. And things turn sexy very quickly, and she ends up in a relationship with all of them, and it's gross. And there's blood play and knife play, and there are some group scenes, but again, there are brothers in this group, so there aren't like tons of like full group things, but there's torture, there's gore, these are nasty, it's dirty, their relationship is not healthy, but she ends up being kind of like the twisted queen to their weird gang of whatever they are, and she ends up fitting right in, and it's very interesting. So again, I thought I'd bring in an oldie. This is a standalone, and again, I don't love reverse harems, but this was like the first one I'd read, and because this one, like, I don't know, because of the element of like the danger and the darkness in it, it kind of worked for me. And the kind of story it was, I wasn't expecting there to be an emotional connection between all of them. She does really help, like, particularly one of the characters has a lot of like PTSD, and she actually does like help him work through that. So that was kind of cool. But in general, my issues with reverse harems are that I want a full, like, I want connections between everybody, and there usually isn't that. Although these guys were all friends and part of a brotherhood. In fact, some of them are actually brothers. And so I did believe this deep connection between them. It just wasn't romantic the way that I like it to be, but I still would put this out. I consider this a pretty toxic relationship, and it works. Then we have The Italian by T.L. Swan. This one is definitely toxic. This is a one-night stand on a vacation that turns into a whole lot. This is a mafia romance as well. As you can tell, I have a lot of those, and I still have some more as well that fit into this. But our heroine, sorry, I didn't write down her name when I went through. I think that it's Olivia and Enrico, and she's on a vacation with a friend. She has a one-night stand or a couple-night stand with actually this police officer, and then she's going to be continuing her tour through Europe with her friend before going back to Australia. And he actually asks her to come back through Italy before she leaves because they have such an amazing time. While she is gone, he finds out a couple of things. Number one, his father was actually the head of the mafia. Somehow he did not know this. And when his father dies, he gets made the boss. So there goes his, job in the police force and all of that. And now he's like the #1 target for all this. He has to take over all of these operations. There's some things he wants to get rid of, like the family is in like sex trade. He's not interested in that. And all of this happens in like the week that our heroine is gone. And when she comes back to Italy, he told her to reach out to her. and he very much spurns her, says horrible things to her, says she was just his weekend pussy, and sends her on her way. And he hates that he does that. He hated that he did that, but he's like, literally, I'm not who I thought I was. I can't bring this innocent person into it. However, after, I think it's just a couple of years, I think it's 2 or 3 years, he wants her back. And now he's more established, he's more in charge. He knows what his, like what he needs to do, but he wants her back. So he works it out so that she gets a job offer in Italy. He gets her brought back to Italy, and he asks her to be his mistress. And she thinks that she'll be able to do that. But, obviously there's more they have to work out, I know. But he's still supposed to marry an Italian woman and continue the legacy. And so I like what they're like forced into, and the way that there are secrets and they argue, and it goes round and round, and it has quite a cinematic ending to this book. Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. Like, Ferrera was the follow-up to this book, which kind of deals with a lot of what happens at the end of this book, and that one is, I would consider, kind of toxic as well. But there you go. This book, definitely a toxic romance, and it's hefty because it's T.L. Swan, and the lady doesn't know how to write small books. So there we go. All right. Then I have one I will talk about quickly because I've been talking about this book endlessly in the past month or so since before the Mafia readathon, and that is The Kings of Italy by Mila Finelli. And Mafia Mistress is the first one. The second one is Mafia Darling. But this is about our heroine, Francesca, who is stolen away, and she's held prisoner in Italy, and she's supposed to be a bride for the Mafia King's son. And the Mafia King, his name is Fausto, and he actually ends up being very attracted to Francesca. And she just challenges him at every turn. She actually becomes friends with the man she's supposed to marry, who is actually gay. And Fausto is trying his best to get her married off to his son as soon as possible. And he doesn't even know that his son is, gay. But Francesca refuses to be moved. And he ends up being very attracted to her and decides that, you know what? I don't need her to marry my son. I'll find someone else to marry him. I want her to be my mistress. So I'm going to make her be that. And he makes her a promise that if you are my mistress till I'm done with you, I'll then send you back to your family and, let you, I'll pay for school. I'll make sure you get what you want if you give this to me. And she's just kind of like, I don't want that. But even though she really does enjoy physical things with him, he just refuses to see her as an equal for a lot of this. Now, I would definitely consider this first book a toxic romance. This ends on a cliffhanger. And the second one, Mafia Darling, really does a lot of work in kind of redeeming Fausto in a lot of ways. And I'm not looking for a mafia hero to be redeemed, but there are some specific things about his character that needed redeeming. And this author brought it about in spades, for real, brought it about in spades. And I loved that. But this one, definitely toxic in the beginning. And I like that we get to see growth for that. Then I have 2 more I want to talk about. And these are some that they're rated a little bit lower by me, but I still wanted to recommend them to you. So one of them is North of the Stars by Monica James. This is a Viking romance. I actually had quite a rant about this, but a lot of people are really enjoying this series. This is going to be 3 books in this series, and the first 2 are out. This first one, it's about Emmeline and Scath, who is the Viking, and she's the princess of this made up land, and her father captures a bunch of Northmen, and he kills all of them except for Emmeline. Makes him stop from killing Scath and says that I bet that Scath could teach you guys how to fight better. And so he gets taken as a prisoner who is teaching the king's men how to fight other Vikings. And she has feelings for Scath pretty early on. They more so become friends. He actually teaches her how to fight against the will of her family. And this first book actually takes place, I think, over like, I believe that it was 5 or 6 years, because we see her when she first meets him, and then we see them a couple years later, and then there's actually a time jump because our heroine gets sent to an arranged marriage, and our hero actually marries someone else as well. And then a few years later, Scath gets sent to visit the princess where she's living, and we find out what's been happening to her in this arranged marriage she was in. And their like feelings for each other are so messed up, and the way that Scath like thinks that he's protecting her only causes her pain again and again. And every time she tries to move on from him because he's married, he shows up again, you know. So this one was very toxic, very just bananas. And yeah, I haven't read the second book yet. I don't know if I will. I'm strangely curious. I'm apparently a glutton for punishment, but hey, I'm recommending toxic romances, and this one fits. And then the last one I want to recommend, and I think that a lot of you have read this because this was recommended to me a ton. I actually read it because it was a viewer recommendation. This author's writing it doesn't always work for me. She writes new adult for the most part, and new adult is tough for me. So this was Things I Wanted to Say but Didn't, or But Never Did, I don't know, by Monica Murphy. And this is about Summer and Whit. This is a boarding school romance is where it starts. And Summer is forced to go to this boarding school, and she is extremely bullied there and like almost assaulted by multiple people. And then her and Whit begin kind of this like toxic ring around the rosy with each other, where they will like share their secrets, but then like he's horrible to her, and then like more secrets come out, and like his family doesn't like her. Like it's just a mess. And if you love really messy, toxic, sexy new adult, like this book is for you. And again, this is what I'm recommending because a lot of people like it. It didn't fully work for me. I know there's another one like after this. I think people have mentioned that there's more to this, but like Monica Murphy's writing, like I said, just doesn't work. I've read other of her books too. I don't like being in this new adult space. I just don't like it. I don't like when people are in school. I really, really don't. But again, a lot of people love this, and so I wanted to recommend it to you. So there you go. Those are some romances that I think are pretty toxic. Check them out. Check out the videos by my friends who've made them. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.